Hello, this is Daniel Stevenson, and a little bit of commentary on the opening ceremony of the French Olympics. I watched most of this live on the TV, but I actually missed the bit I'm going to be commenting about, although since I've read about it and I'm mainly commenting on other people's reactions to it, I think that's legitimate. If I were to comment on many of the aspects of the opening ceremony, for example, a celebration of two French women who had been responsible for legalising abortion, then this could be quite a long video. I don't want to keep them short. But a lot of the fuss has centred on a sort of parody or mock-up of the Last Supper. For those who don't know, this is a famous painting by Leonardo da Vinci depicting Jesus and his disciples at the Last Supper. I will add, as an aside, that evangelical Christians like me are not usually very keen on artistically depicting Jesus of Nazareth, not least because we do not know what he looked like, and almost certainly he did not have a white face or blue eyes, and probably didn't stand taller than all the people around him. We read in Isaiah 53, he had no form or comeliness that we should look at him. Having said that, religious art is what it is, and Da Vinci's The Last Supper is a very highly regarded work of art, and it was parodied by people rather like the people that we see in this picture. I'll be careful exactly what I say about them. Lots of comment, much of it fairly predictable. This from GB News, which mentioned that Elon Musk said this was seen as an insult to Christians, and he said Christianity has become toothless. That concerns me a little bit. Christians, if we're to follow the teaching and example of Jesus, are not supposed to go around biting people. We read in Paul's letter to the Galatians, if you bite and devour each other, be careful you're not consumed by one another. Oh, for sure, Christianity is supposed to take over the world, but only by peaceful persuasion, teaching and good example. We're the ones who are supposed to turn the other cheek and put up with it if people are horrible to us. We're not supposed to hit back at people. There's some other folks who do that, as Geert Wilders, who, don't let's forget, lives under continual threat of assassination, and some Dutch politicians have been assassinated for criticising Islam, and some cartoonists have been murdered as well for that. So he does mention, as a lot of people, this has just been so obvious, I'm not going to bother to go on about it, but if the makers of the Olympic introduction show had insulted Islam the way they've insulted Christianity, then some folks have said Paris would be burning tonight. I don't want to endorse that or make a big deal of it, but these people know the score. They know what they can get away with. Yeah, we all know this has become a little bit boring. People say this, and they've been saying it for years, and nothing much seems to happen. What could happen, I don't know. I have a strong suspicion, a very sneaky feeling, that a lot of people who say, oh, they wouldn't insult Muslims like this, may not actually be people who go to church very often. I certainly don't want laws to protect Christians from being insulted or to prevent our faith from being insulted. I believe in free speech, and that includes speech which some people will find offensive. After all, anybody can be found to be offended. You can always find somebody somewhere who is offended. Jesus taught us to put up with being offended and respond graciously. Yeah, diversity. Of course, it's a wonderful thing that we've had tens of millions of people from Africa and Middle East and Far East come to live in Europe, and they say that it's because we haven't got enough young people to do the jobs. Well, I wonder what happened to all the young people. Certainly in Britain, in the last 50 years, during time I can remember, we've had over 10 million abortions, and about 10 million immigrants have come into the country. We're not supposed to talk about population replacement, but it looks a bit like it, actually. I saw this lady, I'm not sure actually if it is a lady or not, Aya Nakamura. I saw her doing a very sexually suggestive dance, at one point at which she seemed to be touching her own vulva. If she has a vulva, I'm not sure. I don't want to know. Yeah, the French were celebrating their revolution with, Marie Antoinette, beheaded Marie Antoinette was singing lots of revolutionary guards and the celebration of the famous novel Les Miserables by Victor Hugo about the revolution. And they're still clearly very proud of it, as they're very proud of Napoleon, that blood-stained murderer. And they were celebrating all of this. I've been doing a bit of research about the French Revolution, and I turned this up. 4,000 people were drowned over a period of several months, deliberately drowned, in the river Loire at Nantes under the French Revolution. You can read about this quite easily. A lot of them were monks, priests and nuns who refused to renounce Christianity and swear an oath of allegiance to the French Revolution. And apparently they modified or designed some barges specifically to take these people out into the middle of the river at night and drown them. The river was quite wide and strongly flowing at Nantes. This number of 4,000 is quite interesting because most historians agree that this is ballpark similar to the total number of people who were executed by the Spanish Inquisition. Now, the Spanish Inquisition took place in a number of European countries, not just Spain, and also in Spanish territories in South America, over a period of 300 years. Now, I am not a supporter of the Spanish Inquisition, but even if we accuse it of being an entirely Christian affair, it was certainly run by the Catholic Church in conjunction with the state power, for sure. So let's call it a Christian affair, although I'm not at all convinced that that is genuinely true. But if it was, then they killed about one person per month over a period of 300 years. Now, here we have a similar number being killed over several months under an atheistic revolutionary regime in a major city in France. And France was celebrating their revolution. So I'm just calling for a little bit of perspective, a little bit of historical perspective. So if somebody says to me, what about the Spanish Inquisition? Or rather, if they say, what about the Inquisition? I'll say, which Inquisition do you mean? The Pol Pot Inquisition? The Stalin Inquisition? The Mao Zedong Inquisition? The French Revolutionary Inquisition? The Fidel Castro, Che Guevara Inquisition? The Spanish Inquisition, where the majority of people who were put on trial, they all got a trial, not necessarily a fair one. Many were acquitted, others apologised and were let off with a warning or a fine. Some were in prison, some were exiled, and a very few were actually executed. But the French Revolution executed a lot more people in a couple of years than the Spanish Inquisition executed over 3 centuries. So, all means criticise Christianity, but it's a good thing, I think, they get some facts right and actually a bit of a historical perspective. And France was, as well as celebrating abortion, celebrating queerness, was also very much celebrating their blood-soaked revolution. And this often comes up, particularly by people who never go to church. That they're always pissing over Christianity, but they would never dare to piss over Islam. Yeah, I get it. Do you know why? Because Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing. And he said to his disciples, if somebody wants to punch you on one cheek, let them punch you on the other one as well. If somebody wants to steal your cloak, let them steal your shirt as well. Very hard teaching. But Jesus, when he was cursed, he did not return a curse. Muhammad had a different approach. I'll be careful what I say about Muhammad, but all Muslims would agree that Muhammad was a leader of armies, and that those armies invaded and they killed and they took slaves, and that nobody can deny that there have been a number of issues in recent time in Europe, where people have been killed. The Charlie Hebdo murders took place and the Bataclan murders took place in Paris, just a few kilometres away from where Christianity was being insulted in a very vulgar way. So what then? What are we to conclude of all this? Paris does a big show celebrating French history, telling us about the things that they're proud of. They're proud of abortion, they're proud of queerness, they're proud of their bloodthirsty revolution, and they're just generally proud of themselves, and they think that they're really wonderful. Well, fair enough. I love France very much. I visit it relatively often, and I'd like to get to know France even better. It's a beautiful country. I wish it well, wish its people well. Its history, like the history of my country, is a mixture of the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the very ugly. As a Christian, I think when we reflect back on our lives, and indeed on our civilization's history, we can sometimes be proud, but I think very often we'll need to be sorry and acknowledge fault and try to make amends. And that's really the heart of the Christian gospel, to recognise the fact that you're a sinner, that you've failed, you haven't got it right with God, and you have done inexcusable things, and you have failed to do things that you should have done, and that there are consequences for all of that. The gospel message is held out to all. Anyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. And I don't want censorship. I want people to feel free to be free to say things that I would rigorously disapprove of. I don't welcome that sort of thing, but neither do I want it forbidden, because I don't want to be blocked or banned or cancelled myself, and so therefore I should allow other people to have the freedom to say what they have to say, even if it offends me. And I think there was some stuff in the opening ceremony which was highly offensive to Christians, and intentionally so. So I would just leave that there. Thanks for listening.